You know when the clock strikes 12 that Midnight Mania Sports hosted by Austin Nakuda and George Hathaway starts right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of Midnight Mania Sports. Austin Nakuda here with George Hathaway. George, busy week in sports. We're back for episode 2 here, our first Zoom call of the year. Excited to be ready to go here for the start of the NFL season and more Midnight Mania Sports.
I'm really looking forward to it. Football now is in full swing, and I'm happy to be talking about football once again.
So I guess we have to start with Thursday Night Football from last night. Chiefs and Texans. Chiefs getting the win there. The defending Super Bowl champions, or I don't know if you'd call them defending, reigning Super Bowl champions, however you want to say it. Impressive showing from Patrick Mahomes, and the Texans looking like they missed DeAndre Hopkins last night.
I mean, David Johnson had a good game. He had 80 yards and 1 touchdown, but it seemed like they were missing DeAndre Hopkins, especially as a receiver, where they weren't really as stacked at that position as they were last year. And it looked like Watson, you can just tell, like by the way that the Texans were playing and how Watson was playing, that they were really missing that key piece to their offense.
Fuller had 8 catches for 110 yards. Not a bad week in fantasy for me, but guys who haven't really stepped up quite yet. So they're still kind of looking for that piece because I don't know if Fuller's going to be really a number one receiver. He can't stay healthy. They struggled last night overall. Their defense didn't do much. They allowed 126 yards to the rookie running back for Kansas City, and then allowed Mahomes to throw over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. So the Texans got a lot to work on as the season progresses.
And the Chiefs are picking up right where they left off, really. You know, their offense is still hot and their defense is still getting stops. And you thought, looking back at last year's playoff game between the Chiefs and Texans, how the Chiefs had a 20-point lead and then they ended up blowing that.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they kind of just still seem like the same team and they really didn't do anything during the offseason to really help them grow from that moment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, things change throughout the year. Obviously, week one, you don't want to overreact, but, it does give you kind of an early estimation of who's going to, stand out. Will Fuller had a good game, as we mentioned. We saw, Kansas City as a whole looked pretty good. They didn't have any Super Bowl hangover in that game, but Tampa Bay and Mike Evans not playing, that's got to affect Tom Brady, you think pretty significantly because that's one of his 2 Pro Bowl receivers he won't have on opening day.
Um, the Buccaneers are really going to be missing Mike Evans because he's a key to that offense. He's probably one of the best receivers on that team. I mean, he is top 5 in the NFL. So really, by having Evans there, it's going to give Tom Brady an offense that is really, on paper, probably one of the best offenses he's ever had in his career. I mean, you look at the 2007 Patriots, that was probably one of his best offenses. But looking at this one, that's probably going to top that.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, just on, like you said, on paper, I mean, 2 Pro Bowl receivers. We talked about it last week. Gronk at tight end. Talked about how he's got a couple good backup tight ends and Cam Brate, OJ Howard. Good run game with Fournette. So it'll be interesting, but it appears we're going to have to wait till week 2 to see that offense in full swing as Evans is likely, unlikely to play with that hamstring injury.
And this is such a very important game, I think, for the Buccaneers. It's going to really show how well they all play together. You have a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
great players on one team, so you're going to want to see how the chemistry is with that. If some players might not be getting the ball as much. Austin, I think you brought that up last week. Is that some players aren't going to be able to get the ball as much as they used to when you had Jameis Winston at the helm at quarterback. So you're going to see a lot of different kind of aspects on that offense where you won't normally see.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of guys will have to make some adjustments as Tom's not gonna. He even said it in his press conference the other day. Football's become kind of simple to him. If they're playing deep, throw it short. If they're playing short, throw it deep. Where, as I think Jameis was kind of a throw it deep if they're playing deep, throw it deep if they're playing short, throw it deep at any point in the game. So I don't think Tom's going to take that approach. So that might limit some of the numbers from Evans and Godwin, but for at least week 1, it looks like he'll be without Evans, but Godwin should have a really good game. We don't know how healthy Gronk is. There's no preseason, which is the toughest part because you have no idea, how these guys look. If there's injuries, you've heard something about some injuries, but it'll be an interesting week one, a unique one for sure, because they've had no kind of preseason at all to get ready.
Yeah, and like you said, Austin, you're not really going to know what these players are looking like because over an off season, especially with an off season we've had this year, is that players have definitely changed, um, and it's going to affect their game either in a good way or a bad way, and you just kind of want to see that play out. And I think especially for the Patriots, if you're a Patriots fan and on the Patriots team, you're kind of really missing that preseason because you have a new QB. You lose a few weapons here offensively, and then defensively a lot of players have opted out. So you kind of want to see how these players that are going to be stepping up are going to play in a
Mhm.
real kind of game situation.
Yeah, I agree. And for each team, week one's a fresh start, and obviously you have some surprises coming. You have some disappointments on tap, but we hope that Cam Newton, who makes his debut Sunday, he seems ready. He's excited. He's done all the right things in terms of, what to do in a Patriots uniform. Um, and it's really, I think it's been a good match because I think it's the best thing for Jared Stidham too, because what we keep hearing is he's not ready, or maybe he's not even the guy. So
Mhm.
this probably saves Stidham some longevity in the NFL as well by not having to throw him out there this year. Because if he played poorly this year, that'd probably be it. The Patriots aren't a team to wait for you to, play poorly for a couple years and then, well, that's kind of it. You know what I mean? Just like roll with what you have. They'll find somebody else. Like they have Newton. They don't know if they really. I don't know if they are all in on Stidham. If they really kind of believe that he can be the next guy.
And with Stidham too, he learned from Tom Brady a little bit, which I don't know how Tom Brady is as a mentor. I mean, he's had some great backups in his career, but at the same time, like you don't know how it is to kind of play with him and be behind him. But I feel like with Newton, that Jared Stidham will really kind of learn from him because those guys are kind of similar players. Like
Hmm.
nobody's going to be Tom Brady, nobody's going to be the next Tom Brady, and just by having Cam Newton is just like another way for Stidham to learn the game of football, which will only prolong his NFL career.
I agree, and we'll get into more NFL talk in a few minutes. But in other kind of breaking news or top stories of the day, the Celtics tonight have Game 7 at 9 o'clock against the Toronto Raptors. I mean,
Mhm.
what a series it's been back and forth for both teams. But I hate to blame it on the refs in Game 6, but I know there was some calls that could have gone the Celtics way that didn't, and the NBA even said that in their report where they said that the refs missed a call here on Kemba, or this should have been ruled a different way. So the Celtics, though, I mean, at the same time, you don't want to even put yourself in that position where the refs can decide the game. So I don't know what are you expecting from Boston tonight? You think they come out and kind of bounce back and blow away the Raptors? You think it's a close game? You think we come out flat? I mean, what are you looking for tonight, George?
For me, what I'm looking for as the Celtics is that Kemba needs to be more involved. He hasn't been in a situation, a game 7 situation, I don't think, in his career, especially as an important one like this. When he was with the Hornets in Charlotte, he never got out of the first round. He got swept by LeBron, every single year pretty much. So for Kemba, this is a new kind of stage for him. And what Kemba needs to do really is just step up and be that leader for the Celtics. This is a young Celtics team, and these players play in big time games. I'm expecting a big game from Jason Tatum. Kemba Walker, like I said, he played 50 something minutes last game in game 6 and only had 5 points. So he's definitely going to need to step up, play his game. Jaylen Brown as well. And then Marcus Smart too. I mean, he's going to have to provide that defense like he does all throughout the regular season. So, and I think the Celtics are better coached right now than the Raptors are. Even though Nick Nurse won Coach of the Year, I think that Brad Stevens knows what he's doing and he has a lot more talent around him to kind of prove that.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game, and as you said, I think when it comes down to it, if you need somebody to kind of coach you to a win, Brad's done that before. We've seen him drop game winners right before the cancellation of the season. I know Tatum had a few big games, and they were get into that groove. But like you said, Kemba's kind of the the X factor in this game for me. If Kemba plays really well, I think the Celtics are going to win without much trouble. But if Kemba continues to struggle and Jalen Brunson putting 5 each, it'll be a close game because with their game plan, if they'll let Kemba, continue to shoot, continue to try to score, but if if he's missing early, then they're going to be in some trouble because once you take Kemba off the floor, Van Vliet's on the floor, Smart does a good job defensively, but at the same time, he's focusing on his defense and you're really forcing Tim and Brown to take, most of the shots. Kemba's going to have to find a shot tonight, I think, if the Celtics want to win.
And even Kyle Lowry, you're going to need to stop him. He had a phenomenal game 6, and he's one of those X factors in this series, I believe, is Kyle Lowry. He's been in this situation before, and so have the Raptors. They have this game 7 experience, except they're missing Kawhi Leonard, who was a very big role, who played a big role in their game 7 win in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So, without Kawhi Leonard, I don't think the Raptors really have that advantage over the Celtics in a game 7.
Yeah, I mean, Lowry's a guy who I guess has been underrated for years. I mean, nobody has kind of taken him seriously in a way. They look at Lowry and like, oh, this isn't a star who can win you a series. But when you put him with the guys that, he's been surrounded by this series, they've definitely helped, make up for Kawhi and really make this a formidable playoff team. Now, I think long term, if the Raptors go to play the Heat, I think the Heat are going to win that series in 6 games. If the Celtics go to play the Heat, I think that series goes to 7 games, and that's kind of anyone's series. But I don't think the Raptors, I don't see them as a championship team. I see the Celtics as a team that can make a run for the championship because once they get Tatum in a groove, once they get Jalen comfortable and kind of get back to what he is, Tice has been more than okay down low guarding all these big men in the East. So I think they really match up well the rest of the way. But it all comes down to tonight, and I guess, Celtics can't get off to a slow start, and they can't give up, 55 points in the third quarter like they do every game. So it'll be an interesting one. But, if you're a Celtics fan, this is a most exciting kind of circumstances you've been in for probably 2 years. I mean, last year we didn't really have a big playoff game because obviously got blown up by the Bucks, and then a couple years back when they played LeBron, that was a huge game 7. So this will be a big one for this team, and if they win, the momentum will help carry them into the Heat series.
It's going to be long term. I think the Celtics and Heat is going to be probably one of the best Eastern Conference Finals that we're going to watch this year. And one of the best conference finals we'll probably watch this year because the Heat are really an underdog throughout this whole playoffs, and kind of like the Nationals last year in the World Series and throughout the MLB postseason. That's kind of like my comparison between the two. Is nobody thought the Nationals were going to win. We didn't think that. The media didn't think that, but they continued to win. And that's the same thing that you're going to see with the Heat throughout this NBA postseason and carrying on through the playoffs, is that they're going to use that underdog mentality to their advantage and kind of try to just keep proving the haters wrong. And that's what Jimmy Butler is doing.
Kind of the underdogs of the postseason, each with a couple young guys playing well and a couple of veterans like Butler team, kind of how the Nationals had Scherzer and those guys that helped lead their team to victory. Now in other NBA basketball kind of up-to-date news, the Lakers took a 3-1 lead with their win over Houston last night. I think that series is kind of all but wrapped up. I mean, they don't really match up well with the Lakers, and of course, LeBron's tough to beat. Tough to beat when he has good players around him, that is.
Yeah, for the Rockets, they continue to play this small ball, which is kind of like a new kind of form of basketball. It's a weird form of basketball that they're playing too, is that they have no one really to guard Anthony Davis. PJ Tucker has been doing a good job. He did a great job in game 1 when they got that win. But I think the Lakers just started to adjust to it. You saw this in the series before with the Lakers and Trailblazers. The Lakers lost game 1 in both series, but then they came back to win 4-0 and without losing another game. So really for the Lakers, it's just Rondo's really the big X factor, I think, in this entire series. He's been putting up numbers, veteran numbers, that you really haven't seen Rondo do since the Celtics days back in like 2008 when they won the NBA Finals. So Rajon Rondo is huge for the Lakers right now. He's giving them a lot of momentum. He's also giving them good looks down low the basket. You see a lot of times where in this series, it's not LeBron's game. It's actually more these other players who are contributing as well, just adding on to it all. Caruso, he had a big three against the Rockets in last night's game, and that kind of really sealed the deal. So it's really all these other players who are contributing more than LeBron is. Not more than LeBron. LeBron, of course, is playing like how he normally does and dominating the game, but it's these other players who are really contributing that you never really would expect to have games like this.
I think the Lakers were helped too by the fact that the Rockets are missing Daniel House, who was averaging 10 points, 4 rebounds, but he's been, I guess, suspended indefinitely after sneaking
Yeah.
a COVID testing staffer into his hotel room. So that's not going to fly. But that really forced the Rockets to be shorthanded and go to 8 men total playing in that game. So, I mean, they were kind of gassed off the bench. Austin Rivers played well. Ben McLemore is not really somebody you want on the court for as many minutes as he was. And obviously, Harden didn't play up to par. 2 of 11 from the floor, 1 of 6 from deep. Overall, I think kind of House not playing and then Harden's poor shooting really did them in that game. And obviously, an incredible uphill battle the rest of the way. But if LeBron starts losing games to this Rockets team, it allows him to make this competitive. It's gonna kind of be the narrative of LeBron can't close out a series. I mean, I think they'll still get the win. Or LeBron, you want to win this in one game and finish this off right now.
Yeah, and for the Rockets, it's really poor shooting, like you said, Austin. Harden's not playing well, and I don't even think Westbrook is playing, how he normally is either. I think in that first series, Westbrook really started trailing against the Thunder. I think it was more like Game 6 and Game 7 where Westbrook kind of started this trend of not playing well. So you're going to need your key players to step up if you're the Rockets, if you're Mike D'Antoni. His job is pretty much on the line. And if they lose this, he's going to be looking for a new coaching position. And I'm pretty sure that narrative is set. And if I were the Rockets, that's not something you want to do because D'Antoni's a great coach. And he's proved it in the last, few years by coaching a great Rockets team. But at the same time, though, you need your big star players to step up.
Yeah. I mean, you said it best. I mean, this is what D'Antoni, I don't really fault D'Antoni, the whole way because they constructed a roster without a center on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a challenge already. No matter how good PJ Tucker is, you just can't, they don't get rebounds. I mean, they might play well defensively. Tucker's done a good job, but at the same time, it's tough to, getting rebounds, getting stops inside. But another game tonight will be the Clippers and Nuggets, and that series as the Clippers are up 3-1. Now you think Denver's got a shot at kind of coming back?
No, I don't really think they do. I thought the Nuggets played a great job against the Jazz, but at the same time, it's the Clippers. You know what I mean? You have Paul George, who has really stepped up this series. Kawhi Leonard hasn't been playing as well as he has been, but at the same time, Kawhi Leonard's Kawhi Leonard. So he's a great player, and I think they're out-coached, the Clippers are. I think the Clippers are out-coaching the Nuggets, really. Doc Rivers is doing a great job with this team, and maybe the Nuggets might win one more game in this series, but I don't see them winning this series.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, Doc's done a good job with the Clippers, defensively, kind of helping offensively make up for Paul George not playing as well. And for Denver, I mean, they don't really match up as well, as other teams do with the Clippers. I mean, they don't have, like, Jokic doesn't really match up because Harrell plays really well, Zubac plays him well, and Jamal Murray obviously on the perimeter. But I think Porter Jr. was upset with his share. He wanted more offensively, which you don't want to hear that out of a player so young, complaining about touches. So that'll be interesting to watch in this game if they try to feed Porter Jr. more. But it should be a good game 5, and I think the Clippers close it out tonight. That's my prediction.
That's a good prediction right there. I can see that happening. Clippers are a great team, and to watch a Lakers-Clippers Western Conference Finals, I think, is really what everybody wants to see and what I think everybody needs right now is a very competitive Western Conference Finals.
The Clippers still play at the Staples Center, right, with the Lakers? They both share the building?
Yeah, they do.
I'm not sure if they moved yet. Like, I know some teams are moving around. The Warriors had the new arena. But it would have been interesting to see them playing a Western Conference final with, in the same building. I assume the Lakers would have had more fans there for all 7 games. So, well, the Clippers have really had any home court advantage, but now it doesn't matter in the bubble. I mean, no real home court advantage for either of them.
Yeah, and that's what's good about the bubble. Is like it's kind of like a fair playing ground for all these teams. Is that you don't have home court advantage really. The only thing different is probably the virtual fans and the logo on the court. That's pretty much what kind of differentiates home court
Mhm.
advantage in the NBA bubble with this playoffs.
Yeah, moving over to the MLB now with that's also going on. NFL starting, it's everything's happening at once, which is just bizarre. Uh, Bobby Dahlbeck for the Red Sox. I don't know if you've seen him. They called up, and he's just been hitting home runs every game. It seems like. I mean, he's got 5 in the last week, and he's a guy who has got a ton of power. So interesting to watch, and at least something exciting coming from Red Sox games where they're just throwing random pitchers on the mound all game.
Yeah, I think this is really what the Red Sox need for this team. They haven't had the best year, and I'm pretty sure that was pretty predictable that they weren't going to have a good season. And someone like that who can really spark the offense and get that going and build momentum is just what they need if they want to have kind of a shot of making the playoffs or the postseason if they even can.
Yeah, and for Boston, I mean, they don't really have a ton to, I guess, look forward to for next year, other than kind of trying to get a little bit better than this year. I mean, considering how bad they are. So Dahlbeck could be a guy who sticks around for a while. But another team that has a lot to look forward to is the Atlanta Braves, a young team, 29 runs in a win against Miami Marlins the other night. Acuna had a nice game. Adam Duvall with 3 homers. Freddie Freeman hit a homer. I mean, they got a lot of talent, and this is a team that first in the NL East and could make a run this year. I mean, 29 runs though. If you're the Marlins, that's a tough one.
I mean, I first looked at the score, Austin. I thought I was watching a football game with numbers like that. It was 29-9 at one point. And, I guess I can go back to last week. We talked about the unwritten rules. I mean, if you're up by that much, do you just stop? Even at that point, like, I would just keep going, seeing how many runs I can get at that point. Like, if I'm the Braves, I'm just trying to see how many runs we can score by the end of this game. And I think that they were just having fun with it at the same time. And like, why stop, right? The game's not over, and it's baseball where anything can really happen and lead changes happen just like that.
I think once they got to like 50 safe, but at one point, I mean, the Marlins scored 9 runs too, which there's not baseball games where you score 9 runs and you lose. So it's tough for
Mhm.
the Marlins offense. So like we did our job, we scored 9, but then at the same time they had, their pitching staff allowing 29 runs. They had a pitcher out there, a rookie Jordan Yamamoto, who came in at one point, and they just left him out there to struggle. I mean, he gave up 12 or 13 runs. You're at the point where it's the 5th inning, the other team's got 15, just staying out there until you get some outs. So that was a tough thing to see. I mean, it's almost like you need mercy rule at some point where you just call the game when you're up by 15 to 20 runs. But I mean, it doesn't happen to. It would have happened twice on, was it Thursday? I mean, the Brewers beat the Tigers 19-0. So it was a weird day around baseball.
Yeah, and you brought up the mercy rule, and I think at some point you're going to be like, the other team's going to stop trying if you're up by that much. And like, I it goes back to like the viewings of baseball and how it's kind of like the numbers are really going down. Is that at like some point do you just kind of like call it quits and just be like, all right, this game's kind of over at this point? Like how many people are going to watch a blowout game like that and just kind of be like, and watching it for fun? Like, I know I wouldn't do that, because if a game was that big of a blowout, I just kind of turn it off and turn on another game.
Yeah, I mean, it can be fun, but I mean, at some point, it's just going to be position players pitching and kind of, trying to just finish the game because you already know who won at that point. There's no point in, you're not really anticipating anything or any lead changes or any rallies when you're up by, 10 plus runs after 5 or 6 innings. So, I mean, otherwise, around the MLB, there's no All Star game this year due to the shortened season. But some guys are
Mhm.
having, monstrous first halves, as you would. Some guys may finish the season with an ERA under 2 or historically good numbers, say a guy bats 340, Trey Turner on the Nationals is up near 350. Do you think these stats should get recognized, to say as like historically good numbers? Because it's not a full season. You're going to have pitchers who are going to have incredible numbers through 10 to 12, maybe 15 starts maximum. So you think these numbers, that especially the pitchers are putting up with their ERAs, should be recognized in terms of, wow, he had a year where he had a 2.2 ERA. That's 15th ever in this category. Do you think that should be recognized statistically, or do you think that could have an asterisk next to it?
For a lot of these players, I mean, look at the steroid days, right? Where a lot of these players' numbers are still like up there in the record books, although they use steroids to do it. And,
Mhm.
you know, even though they played 60 games, I don't really think that there should be an asterisk next to it because these players still played at the best level that they could within the circumstances that they're given. So, I mean, I don't think there should be an asterisk considering like a lot of other records don't have asterisks next. I mean, look at Barry Bonds' record.
Right.
Even though he used steroids, a lot of people consider him still the home run king, although he had to cheat
Mhm.
to get to that position. So if there's not an asterisk there for me, I don't think there should be an asterisk for this season.
Well, at the same time, they're only playing to do it, and you don't really have the ability to say, well, if it was a full season, he wouldn't have done that, because you don't know guys
Hmm.
have incredible years, especially on the mound. But it's been a good start for baseball, and the good thing is they haven't had any new positive tests in the last 12 days. So that's been the biggest thing. They haven't had any COVID outbreaks recently, and that's
Hmm.
good. That's promising because they're not in the bubble. They're traveling city to city, and they're not supposed to go out. They're supposed to just kind of stay in the hotel room. But guys might violate that issue, but still, it's been great. They've been, no positive tests recently, so that's a step in the right direction. I think we're back at a point where we can have sports kind of back in their full seasons eventually.
Yeah, no, I agree. As long as like the players follow a lot of the protocols that are set by each of the leagues. I mean, looking at like the MLB, where like you said, Austin, they travel a lot, and
Hmm.
they're in and out of places. They're on planes or doing this or that, and it's not like the NBA where they're just stuck in one location and they can't leave that area. I mean, these players kind of are living, I guess, like what you can call like a normal life, pretty much what they are doing. And as long as they're following the rules and the laws set and everything like that, I think that we can start seeing sports seasons kind of go into those full seasons, and then I think it'll just be good for everybody else.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a different time now than when quarantine first started, because we had nothing to do for a couple
Hmm.
months, and now you look at it, and every sport that you could want is on TV at once, which is great. Sure, there's still people with baseball season starting that are kind of getting into cards, and I know you had a story that you were telling me about.
Yeah, so like you mentioned about how baseball cards are kind of really getting big right now, Austin. And so I was like, I got a pack, right? And I think I got a Hank Aaron card. It's a pretty good card.
Mhm.
And I was looking up on eBay, like, how much it can go for or whatever. And so I put it up there, like I put it up as a listing, and like I kind of matched it with like other ones to see like how it would price out. And it was like going for like $30, whatever. It was a pretty decent card. And some guy bought it. So I was like, all right, cool. So like I sold it to him, I shipped it to him and everything. And I got the money. And so I get a note that he requests to return it. And I was like, why does he want to return it? Right. So he like sent a note and he's like, this isn't really the card I actually wanted. And I was like, dude, I was like, really? So I was like, so he wants to return the card. And I was like, so then I ended up giving him like the money back, whatever, because you request a return, and I'm not trying to get into any of that. It's like with eBay and stuff. I know how they can be if like you don't give the person money back, whatever, if they
Mhm.
request a return. So I was like, whatever, and I was like, so I took the card back, and I was like, really, like that was just a waste of both of our times. If you said this isn't the card you wanted, it was a pretty decent Hank Aaron card.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird kind of industry. I mean, I posted a bunch of different stuff on eBay and sold some stuff. I've only had, I think, one return because the guy didn't look at the picture of the card, and it was kind of the same thing. He was like, "Oh, this isn't um, what I thought it was. It didn't say it in the description." I was like, "Well, I put a picture up. You just didn't look at
Yeah.
the picture. And it's not my fault." So I don't know. Just it's easier just to refund people, but that's one of the
Mhm.
things that like everyone was getting into when there was nothing to do. But now you're seeing it because like all the sports are playing at once. So all these guys are like, "Oh man, he had a great game last night," and they all just flood over and buy his rookie card, and then it's just like, it's crazy. But um, yeah, it's definitely interesting kind of a thing going on because it's cool now. You can like it's almost like you can pay $20 or whatever and get an autographed card of your favorite player, which
Mhm.
is pretty cool. Depending on who it is, obviously not Mike Trout or any high name players, but for you, George, a Pelicans guy like Lonzo, not gonna run you too much money
No.
because of their low talent. But
Oh gosh, Lonzo's one of the. He's an up and coming point guard. I gotta say, he's an up and coming point guard.
we'll have to see. I mean, right now he's there. He's a point guard, but I don't know if I'd call him up and coming quite yet.
He has a team. He has the team around him. I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, there's some pieces, and that's we were going to talk about it. I mean, now's a good time. Is Drew Holiday one of his teammates? You think probably snubbed from
Oh,
one of the
for
all
sure,
defensive teams?
for sure. I mean, he got like I think 4 votes in total on the entire ballot. And you talk to anybody who plays in that Western Conference. Um, I know JJ Redick said that he was snubbed. He should have been on there. Zion said something. Even Kevin Durant went out and said that on JJ Redick's podcast that Drew Holiday should have been on there. And if even if it wasn't first team, I would take a second team ballot. I mean, he had some. I don't even think he had like the numbers like how everybody else did though defensively, but
Mm-hmm.
if you just watched Drew Holiday play, I think you would really see that he had some great defensive stops and he had a lot of hustle, which is something you really don't see on paper. And I think that's what a lot of media members and people who voted kind of missed
Mm-hmm.
out
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Smart made it, Ben Simmons
on.
made it, and there wasn't a ton of argument with those guys. But I think the problem people had was Eric Bledsoe and Patrick Beverly making it over Holiday, partially because those guys were on playoff teams. Is what you have to assume is why the voters kind of recognize them more than they would recognize Holiday. Even though Holiday, I think, works even harder than those guys because you look at who Beverly plays with, right? Beverly plays with like a former defensive player of the year in Kawhi Leonard.
Mhm.
Eric Bledsoe plays with the current defensive player of the year in Giannis. Drew Holiday doesn't have anybody on his team that really is anywhere as good as him defensively. So he's working as hard. If Eric Bledsoe blows a switch or whatever it is, Giannis is right there. Same thing with Patrick Beverly. He's got George and Kawhi and a pretty solid center and Harrell or Zubac down there. But Holiday really, I mean, BI's not yet there defensively. Lonzo's still working on his defense. And, obviously Zion's new to the league. Jackson Hayes is new to the league. Derek Favors is all right. But Holiday had to kind of work twice as hard. And that's what I think a
Mhm.
lot of the issues were, especially with Pelicans players, kind of they're like, listen, I mean, we know how hard we saw Holiday, how hard he worked all year. Just because one of these guys is on a team with the defensive player of the year, they're having good numbers, partially because of the other guy on the court.
Yeah, I think even Damian Lillard said something. He's like, there's been times and moments where I can't get past Drew Holiday either. And I think it was 2 years ago the Pelicans swept the Blazers in the first round of the playoffs. So I mean, and that's when Drew Holiday was really good defensively. And even this year as well. I mean, Drew Holiday had some great defensive games. And he's in a Western Conference though that's actually very hard to play in. And you look at some of those teams, but what is really like what you can't see on paper though is like the heart that he has and the hustle that he also shows out on the court. So in I wasn't too keen on Ben Simmons really getting defensive player of the year. Marcus Smart, I believe, really deserved it. And I was kind of shocked that Kawhi was on a second team all defense and not first team. But that was the first team all defense was very good though.
Yeah, I mean, Smart's one of the hardest workers. I'm glad he's
Mhm.
recognized for it. we'll see how he plays tonight. I mean, he was all over the court in Game 6, so that'll be an interesting kind of story to watch. I mean, Holiday, I'm sure will come back next year with a chip on his shoulder, and I wouldn't be surprised if he makes an all-defensive team next year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I sure hope so that he does because, having a great player like him on a Pelicans team that's so young is his veteran leadership. And time and time again, he just continues to prove that on the Pelicans team where, you have a lot of inexperienced guys, and along with JJ Redick as well, another veteran leader. But other than those two guys, there's really nobody else in the Pelicans who can really lead that team into a playoff run like Holiday and Redick.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it'll be next year is going to be a really fun year for the NBA. You have guys who are going in their second year, like Zion and Ja. You have guys that are so close to being superstars, Brandon Ingram and Jason Tatum, who I think you could arguably call superstars now. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have LeBron looking to we'll see how the playoffs finish, but looking to continue his legacy. Of course, Kawhi, Paul George, kind of that dynamic. So next year, I think I'm really excited for basketball already, and this year's not even done yet. So we got Game 7 tonight. That'll be a
Mm-hmm.
stressful one. Scott Foster doing the officiating tonight. Another enemy of Boston in the New England area. Him and Tony Brothers. Luckily, we only get one of the two tonight. No,
Oh,
Tony Brothers. That guy loves to
that's good.
loves to cuss the Celtics games. I don't know what it is. If he grew up a Lakers fan or something, but he is anti-Celtics all around.
And see, and I think we mentioned this earlier, Austin. I know you did, is that there was like that time where the NBA came out with their 2-minute report, and they said that foul should have been that there should have been a call on Kemba where he was fouled at the end of regulation in the fourth quarter. So, that right there, that's 2 free throws. He makes one. I think there's like less than like 20 seconds left in that game. So, I mean, really, one defensive stop would kind of seal the deal. He makes 1 free throw. You're hoping he makes 2, and then there's the game. So it was a call like that, and I think there's another one that really bothered me. I think it was Nick Nurse. He was kind of like standing on the court when Jason Tatum had that turnover in the second overtime, when he was kind of like leaning in. I don't know if you saw that video of where Nick Nurse was kind of leaning in at the corner on the baseline. And like I was looking up the rules, like for the NBA rule book, and it was like section 3 part A states that like if a coach is kind of violating where he should be on the court, if he's standing on or over the baseline, that's an automatic technical. And so that right there, the Celtics would shoot Tatum, I would assume, would probably shoot the free throw, and they get the ball back, and that would kind of seal the deal. But I can't really blame the referees in Game 6, really. They did have a factor into it, but I just thought the Celtics should have played a lot better Game 6 down the stretch as well.
I agree. I mean, you can't let the refs, as we said earlier, kind of dictate the game, but the NBA admitted their mistakes, and we'll have to see how the Celtics respond, I guess, later tonight. But another Boston team that got some good news this week is the Bruins, where Bruce Cassidy, the Bruins head coach, was named Coach of the Year, the winner of the Jack Adams Award. So that's a regular season award, clearly.
Mhm.
He wouldn't have got the award if you look at the playoffs with their poor performance, but they need some work, the Bruins, in their third and fourth line, I think, particularly. We'll see what they do this offseason. The NHL rather, Stanley Cup playoffs still happening. We don't talk a ton of hockey, but it is good to see that Bruce Cassidy gets recognized for the good season he had with the Bruins.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I think partially with Tuukka opting out, that really killed their momentum. I mean, that wasn't. Yeah, you look at it, and Halak wasn't terrible. Numbers weren't bad. But I had the momentum thing. You're used to playing with Tuukka. Tuukka's a guy who plays pretty well in the playoffs. Then he just kind of, had to leave due to a family emergency. And I think that
Right.
just kind of stalled any momentum the Bruins had, really.
And Cassidy's the 4th Bruins coach to win that award. So the Bruins have had great coaching throughout, their team history. And, Cassidy's a great coach, and I think he can lead this Bruins team. I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't see it this year or last year, but I'm feeling that third time's the charm here, where this will be another great off season for the Bruins going into the next hockey season. And like you said, with Tuukka Rask out, that really kind of killed a lot of momentum. And it also kind of just threw a lot of players out of the loop because I don't think they really saw this coming. I believe it was like game 2 or 3. He said something where he just wasn't really feeling like playing. He just didn't have his heart into it. And then the day after, I think, is when he really said, like, okay, I'm going to leave now and just go back home. So I kind of was
Mhm.
like, you look at a leader like Tuukka Rask, you don't kind of expect anything of that to come out of his mouth and kind of say something like that, where you wouldn't want like a player like Tom Brady to say, "Oh, I just don't feel like playing. I'm not going to try anymore," because that was like that's your leader. That's the guy you look up to. So, and that same goes for the Rask and the Bruins.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely kind of upsetting to see that Tuca didn't really want to be there.
Mhm.
But then he did say he had a family emergency, so it's tough all around. But if you're the Bruins, like you said, they've had two pretty successful seasons, so hopefully third time's the charm. We'll keep a close eye on any moves they make once the Stanley Cup playoffs are done with. But that's pretty much it. I mean, hockey, there's not a ton, obviously, in terms of
Yeah.
Bruins at this point since they're out. Um, you know, if they were still playing, I'm sure we'd have a lot more to discuss with them.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, they are back at home, enjoying quarantine or enjoying watching the Celtics play. So, and not the Red Sox. I don't think anyone in this area is enjoying watching them play.
No, no one is.
So let's head over to the NFL for the last few minutes on Sunday predictions. We got a few different games, George. I'll ask you kind of pick a winner in a few games. So first up, 1 o'clock on Sunday, Patriots at home with Cam Newton
Hmm.
making his Patriots debut. You got the Patriots, or do you have the visiting Miami Dolphins?
I'm gonna have the Patriots, just because they're at home, and Miami doesn't have the best track record in New England. However, though, I think the Dolphins are going to really put up a good game. They're going to give out a fight. And, with Ryan Fitzpatrick starting for the Dolphins, I think that and he's had some great games against the Patriots. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a close game because we haven't really seen much of the Patriots. This is a very like brand new team pretty much. However, I still have them winning just because I believe Bill Belichick's a better coach than Brian Flores. And Cam Newton, I think, will come out hot, but it'll be a close game.
I agree. I think I'm taking the Patriots as well. I mean, yes, they're swapping out Brady for Newton, and you could argue if Newton's healthy, he is better than
Hmm.
Brady now at this point in his career. Um, but like you said, it's going to be tough for the Dolphins to come here and pull off the victory. So I got to stick with New England. Another game coming up on Sunday is another good one. The Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. Russell Wilson
Mm.
going on the road, a guy who had an incredible season last year, looking to build off that one. I'm going to take the Seahawks on the road, George. Who do you have in that one?
I agree with you. I have the Seahawks as well. The Falcons, they're not the same team like they were last year or when Matt Ryan had that MVP season a few years
Mhm.
back. They lost Freeman, and I don't know. It just doesn't feel like the same team. Matt Ryan, ever since that MVP season, he's kind of like started going downhill a little bit. But Russell Wilson is still going uphill and is still having a great career. And I mean, I'm looking forward to see Tyler Lockett because he's a great receiver and he's a big help to the offense for the Seahawks, but also Jamal Adams. He's going to be playing
Mhm.
cornerback for the Seahawks for the first time week 1. So I think that that Julio and Jamal Adams matchup is going to be probably one that everyone's going to look forward to watching. And in that one-on-one matchup, I'm probably going to have Julio probably getting lot of speed out there, probably getting a few steps out in front of Adams. But at the end of the day, I still feel like the Seahawks are going to win.
As much as I like Brady and I like that offense, I think it's going to take them a week, especially without Mike Evans. The Saints are a good team. We can't forget that. So I'm going to go with the Saints in that game.
Who's home that game?
New Orleans will be.
New Orleans? Okay.
Buccaneers traveling to New Orleans.
Oof.
New Orleans, I believe, are the favorites in that game, but not by much. I think 3.5 point favorites. So that'll
Yeah,
be a
so
good one. But that's a tough
it
pick.
will
I'm
be a
interested to
good
see who
game.
you think.
It's going to be a great game because I'm probably going to be flipping channels between the Saints and Bucks game as well as the Patriots Dolphins because I want to see Brady play. I want to see how he's going to adapt into this new offense that he has.
Hmm.
But the Saints have home field advantage. It's tough playing in the Superdome. That's a very hard stadium to play in. And Brady rarely goes down there because he's been 20 years up in New England, and he doesn't really go down there to New Orleans a lot. So seeing them play two times a year between Brady and Breeze, two of the best QBs in the NFL and in NFL history. So I'm gonna actually say I'm gonna have the Bucks winning that one, Austin. I feel like their offense is very overpowering. Even without Mike Evans, you have Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, OJ Howard as well, and then you have Leonard Fournette in the backfield, who I feel like he's very excited to be playing down with the Buccaneers. And I feel like he's going to have another great year like he did in Jacksonville. I believe that was in 2016, 2017. He had a really good season down there. So, and defensively as well, the Bucks are a great team. And even though I feel like it'll be another close game between these two, I feel like it's also going to be high scoring.
And then another good game coming up this Sunday night at 8:20. The subpar Dallas Cowboys travel to LA to face the Rams. George, I know last year you picked the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl. That didn't happen, but I assume you're taking the Cowboys in this game.
How about them Cowboys? I am so excited for this season to watch them play. I'm going to have them beating the Rams. The defense is looking great. They picked up a lot of good players defensively in the offseason and even drafting some great receivers. CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be one of the X factors, I believe, in this game. They still have a great offense led by Dak Prescott, one of the best QBs in the NFL. So I believe watching that game I think it's going to be a relatively close game. The Rams are still, a decent team. They're not a terrible team, but I just feel like the Cowboys are just overmatching the Rams in week 1 and in every other week as well, because the Cowboys are going to dominate.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game, but I got to take the Rams in this one. I think the Cowboys will have a good year. I think they're going to go somewhere around 11-5. Probably win the division, but I think the Rams are going to surprise a lot of people. A lot of people are writing them off. They don't have Cooks anymore. They don't have Todd Gurley, but they do have a pretty solid defense still. Jalen Ramsey, of course, at corner is going to give, I think, Prescott a lot of trouble when he's trying to find Cooper. But for the Rams, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this year. I don't know how good they'll be because I'm not sold on Goff yet, but I think they'll have a few pretty competitive matchups, and I think this is a game at home that the Rams win.
We'll have to see. We'll talk next week, and I need to get a Dallas Cowboys hat or something so I can wear it every time we talk about them. But I'm pretty sure I won't be allowed to wear that in this household. That is strictly a Patriots household.
Good luck with that one. I mean, I'm glad they support a winning franchise in the Hathaway home.
Hey, yeah. No, we do. All winning teams in this household, except for the Red Sox, but that's fine.
Last game we'll go over is Giants. That'll be a wash of a football game, I think. I think the Steelers will win that one. Big Ben's back. I don't know how much he's got left in the tank, but he's back. I'll take the Steelers in that game.
No, me too. That's all I gotta say. Is I don't even. It was a Monday night game. I don't know why.
I don't really want to
watch. I would rather watch like the Bucks and Saints week 1, Monday night.
Yeah, I don't know why they couldn't have moved Bucks Saints. I mean, I guess they might have done this. Did they do this before Brady signed with the Bucks?
Yeah, no, they did. Yeah, they did. It was before.
That makes sense because nobody wants to watch Danny Jones on Monday Night Football.
No, nobody does. I mean, I guess for Saquon, but that'd be it. But I still have the Steelers winning.
And then the other game starting at early 10:20 p.m. Eastern time is the Titans and Broncos in Denver. I'm going to take the Broncos. I like Drew Lock a lot this year. I'm going to have to stay up and watch the game. I got Drew Lock in 2 fantasy leagues, unfortunately. I kind of, didn't get who I wanted at quarterback, so we ended up with Drew Lock.
I can tell.
Yeah, not good. But we're going to have to roll with them for week 1, so I will be up until 1 a.m. watching that one. And I think Denver's going to come out with the win.
I like the Broncos as well, but actually I'm a big Jerry Jeudy fan. I feel like he's going to have that was a steal of the draft, I believe. Yeah, they got him pretty late. He was a great receiver at Alabama, and I think he'll really kind of produce well. And I think Drew Lock, he's a mediocre quarterback. He's no Dak Prescott, but he's better than Ryan Tannehill, I believe. Ryan Tannehill just hands the ball off to Derrick Henry, and Henry just does the rest. And then Mariota, I don't even know if he's on the team anymore, to be honest.
I don't even know what he is. That draft. I mean, you look at it now. Winston 1, Mariota 2. Ugh.
But Mariota wasn't bad at Oregon, though. He won a championship there, but other than that, he just wasn't like he was, I guess, a bust of the draft. So was Jameis Winston. I mean, that's a whole different story.
I mean, back-to-back picks. That was bad. That was rough. Back-to-back picks. I mean, I'll ask you one more thing. Bold prediction of the NFL of Week 1. What is your? Well, I'll give you one bold prediction. I got one too. I'm pondering.
One bold prediction.
I'll go with mine first. I think the Cleveland Browns go on the road and beat the Baltimore Ravens, and Baker Mayfield throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's my bold prediction. The Browns win, and a big game for Baker. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns.
300 yards from Baker Mayfield, 3 touchdowns. What?
300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and they win the game.
No.
We'll have to see. I mean, this might be his year.
No. All right, so here's
That's my prediction.
My bold prediction is actually I'm going to have the Cardinals beating the 49ers.
I like that one. The 49ers are 7-point favorites, which seems a little bit high considering the Cardinals played competitively at the end of last year and got DeAndre Hopkins, made some improvements. So that's a good one. I like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens either. So
yeah, it's realistic. Not like Baker Mayfield throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Listen, he threw for 300 yards twice last season.
Against who?
Let me pull that up for you. Hold on.
It's definitely against one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
He threw for 342 yards in Baltimore in Week 4 last year.
Oh, yeah, that was before the Ravens really kind of started that going.
Yeah, so my bold prediction's got a good chance of happening. He loves playing in Baltimore. What a guy. Pro Bowl quarterback potential right there.
He needs to keep, his receivers in check. He needs to make sure they're doing good.
It'll be a fun year for the Browns. I mean,
Odell, it already started.
Jarvis, yeah. It's the most Browns thing you can ever have happen. I mean, what an organization.
Oh God!
I mean, they got a lot of talent. They brought Austin Hooper in, so Baker's gonna have a good game, a good Week 1. Hopefully, he throws a lot to Odell. I have him in one fantasy league too. So
Odell didn't have a good year last year, but I expect him to kind of bounce back from that. 300. Baker Mayfield will throw 3 interceptions in that game. I'll take that.
Is that your second bold prediction? We have 3 touchdowns on my end of it, and you think he'll throw 3 picks?
Yes. All right, then give me another. Yeah, it really is. He's a hit or miss kind of guy.
Okay, so your 2 are Cardinals win and Baker throws 3 picks. Mine are Baker throws 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. And my other one will be that Tom Brady will not throw a touchdown pass in the game against the Saints.
Whoa! Wow.
So those are my 2. He will not throw a touchdown pass. That doesn't mean he'll play bad.
No, I don't think
bad.
I understand what you're saying. I feel like he'll get his team down the field. He'll get the Bucs down the field within 5-10 yards in the red zone, of course. But I think they'll just hand it off, really. Fournette probably in the backfield, kind of punch it in. But I can see that one because Brady's had games like that in New England where he just hasn't thrown touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to check back in next week, see if these come true, see if Baker, has a good game. I'm not sure about that one, but we'll see. George, any final thought before we head out and get ready for this big Celtics Game 7?
Other than that, I just gotta say, go Cowboys and go Celtics.
All right, go Celtics, go Patriots on my end here. For George Hathaway, I'm Austin Dakuda. Thank you for listening to this episode of Midnight Mania Sports. We will be back next week with more great content. Thank you for listening and have a great rest of your night.